What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Wait, What Are We Talking About? Podcast, episode 40. They're racking up. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and today I am joined by Kate, aka Lady in Wonderland. Remember, this podcast comes to you guys live every first and third Saturday of the month over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011 at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you guys want to catch it live, obviously hop over there, talk in the chat like somebody might be today, but you can join in the chat with us, talk about the discussions, and maybe even provide topics there. Speaking of topics, if you can't catch it live, remember you can always go catch it over on youtube.com, search Enigma9011 where it's broken out topic by topic, but also put as one big video for your amusement. If you have topics for us to discuss, you can always post them in the comment section down below, and we might get back to you on those. Last but not least, this podcast is sponsored by the merch store. You can get all of your Enigma 9011 swag over there, t-shirts, backpacks, cups, and more. Support the brand. Help us out. That would be greatly appreciated. So,
hashtag ad.
It's a hashtag ad always. So, what we're going to do, lady, this is technically your second time on the podcast.
I don't count the first time because I don't even remember it happening.
Fair enough. Yeah, we're both very tired after Extra Life 2018.
I had even napped at that point, but I was like, my eyes were open, but there was nobody home.
Yeah, it was a rough one.
Yeah.
So this is technically your first podcast, so we'll go through the whole rigmarole of topic 3 once we get there. But we discussed topics, and you said, I don't know, I'm having a tough time thinking of a topic, so I kind of undertook the role, I guess, of coming up with both topics. So the first one's gonna be my topic, technically focusing on you, and then we'll roll into a different one later on. So the first topic today is gonna be hockey. So I know you're a big hockey fan. Hockey. So how long have you been watching hockey, and have you been a fan of hockey?
So I started watching hockey 8-ish years ago when I was in college.
Okay.
And that was at a time when the Colorado Avalanche, who are my team, were really, really, really bad.
Okay.
As they kind of are again a little bit. So tickets to go watch live hockey games were super cheap. So like I could go watch a live hockey game for like $20.
Okay.
And so it was really easy to just go watch a bunch of games. And at the time I lived downtown. So I lived really close to the stadium. So I just went a bunch and watched.
Nice.
And loved watching hockey live. I hadn't really ever watched it before that. And so I didn't enjoy watching it on TV so much yet because I couldn't follow the puck on TV, which I feel like, I don't know, it's like an acquired taste or skill.
Yeah,
you have to do it a little bit, but watching it live is really, really exciting, and the atmosphere is really exciting, and so I just got really into it. And now that I can't afford to go to as many games, I still really enjoy watching the games watching a stream of the games as it's happening. So love it.
Cool. Okay, so you mentioned the Avalanche as your team, hometown team, nobody else really taking the spot. Who are your favorite players on that team? Whether it's, currently or maybe years past, who have been your favorite players that have played for the Avalanche?
So I think the most exciting player recently for the Avalanche, well, in the past like 5-ish years since I've been watching, has been Nathan MacKinnon. We got him as a first-round draft pick. I don't remember what year, a few years ago. And he's just been an amazing player. It's been really fun to kind of watch him develop as a player. His first year nobody expected him to be as good as he was, so he kind of took everybody by surprise, and it was just really exciting to watch.
Okay.
And so he's kind of been a favorite just because I had never really watched hockey before he started playing. So I watched him from the very beginning of his career. And so it's been fun to watch him just from being an 18-year-old kid, which also kind of makes me
Right.
feel bad a little bit. I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
I'm like almost 10 years older than this kid. But we've made quite a few trades recently, so it hasn't been, we haven't gotten another player that I feel like is as much of a franchise long-term kind of player.
Okay.
So I haven't really been as excited about anybody recently. We still have some really amazing players. JT Comfer comes to mind. Timothy comes to mind. So we've got some good players these past couple seasons, but I think Nathan is the good standby.
Yeah, from like you mentioned earlier, their season, at least the current one, hasn't been their best. From the 2 games that we went to, which I enjoyed heavily. Yeah, there's definitely the potential there. They have skill there. It's just, I don't know what the lacking component is per se. That's the tough thing, because you have your shooters, you have your defense. Like, they did pretty well defensive stands. It's just, unfortunately, once or twice happens to go in, obviously. So it's tough to kind of nail on the head what's the problem with it or how to improve it. But yeah, they got a lot of skill and talent on that team, and hopefully, they can make it work eventually. One guy that stood out to me, I think it was the guy in the first game, was the goalie. I don't remember his name, but he was doing very well.
Grubauer.
Yeah, okay. He was doing really well. Yep. And then the second time we went, we got the sub, which he didn't seem to have as much luck. I think he actually got subbed out in the second period, maybe the third for Grub. So maybe that would be just the only thing, is maybe having a stronger backup goalie. And that was a rough game too. That team was very aggressive. I don't even remember. Was it the Sharks? No, Sharks was first night, right?
Yeah.
No, Sharks was the second one, because it was LA Kings the first one. Yeah, the Sharks were really being very aggressive and kind of dicks. Like, later in the game, we're like, oh, that's a fight guy. We're just watching him, seeing him being an asshole. So, yeah, I think it's just that maybe the defensive mechanic of the goalie having a stronger backup, maybe that would help. And
we've got good. I don't think you saw him play. Semyon Varlamov is our first goalie, and he's been pretty consistently really, really good. His major problem is he has reoccurring injuries that keep taking him out. And I saw something today on Twitter about him saying that he wanted to stay in Colorado. So I don't know. Of course, I didn't prepare for this podcast by clicking on the article and reading it or anything like I should have. But so I hope they're not talking about trading him. I don't think that's a good idea unless he's just going to be continuously injured. But I feel like he's a good first line goalie, and I like having Grubauer. I hope we keep him as well and keep developing him. But we just have had problems defensively. Like, we have a few pretty good defensive players, but it feels like there's no depth to the defense. So if you lose one person, the whole thing kind of falls apart.
Yeah, so. I hear that. You mentioned that McKinnon you started with from the start because his career started then, so it was just easy to latch on. I feel that's a similar parallel to me in basketball. Now, for those of you guys don't know, when I started watching basketball, the Thunder, Oklahoma City, they just moved from Seattle, the Supersonics. So not that any of the players were new then, but it was like, oh, this is a new team. Sure, I'll hop on here. Not that I obviously live in Oklahoma or anything like that, but it was like, all right, let's do that. But yeah, I totally understand. Like, OKC had their ups and downs in certain seasons. Like, they made some very deep playoff pushes, and I think one year we actually made it to the finals. But it was a lot of young talent. Obviously, Kevin Durant, who's now in the Warriors, Russell Westbrook, who's still there, kind of leading the team. We had Serge Ibaka, who I believe is in Toronto now. Cephalosha somewhere. I don't know. Oh, and then we had big Kendrick Perkins, who I think is retired now. But we had a lot of players who, like, were young. Perkins was, like, the vet, but, like, he had a good inside game, but the rest kind of fell apart. But that was, because he was a center, and that's what he was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. But I understand what you mean in the depth of bench. Like, the first year I started watching, we had James Harden. I think he was there for maybe 2 years, and then he left for Houston. But, like, he was our best backup. Mm-hmm. Like, Tabo was starting line, but he wasn't that great. There was, like, you didn't have people you can rely on like him, like Harden, to fill the spot. And then after Harden left, yeah, it was rough for a while. And we've had a bunch of players kind of go in and out over the years, which I get, but I also am like, you got to give this person some time to kind of grow. Yeah. One player I can think of in particular is Reggie Jackson. He was a background guy we had for a while, and then Russ got injured, so Reggie kind of had to step up and take his spot, and he did a really good job of that. And then he got traded. Turns out it was a good move. He's kind of a dick. But there's other players that, like, had potential that came in and just they let him go. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they should have kept him around, just like I said, to kind of 1 year is not a big enough time period to make an impact. Yeah, you gotta kind of let people grow their chemistry a little bit. So yeah, I can understand the depth for the hockey team for Avalanche. Hopefully they can get better at that. I feel when we went live, there was, I don't know his name, but we kept referencing him as New Kid because he was subbing in for somebody who was injured.
I don't remember he was number 25, but I don't remember what his name was.
he was in like maybe no more than 5 minutes total, like both games. Yeah. He was very in, something happened, got back in the favor, whoop, and then he swept back out. But he made an impact while he was in there, or at least I was paying attention to him a lot, so it seemed like he made an impact. But if their development team is like him, I think if you keep grooming them like that, and then obviously when they call up, if they can make those quick impacts and eventually turn into longer ones, I don't know, then I think that's a good move. So as an Avalanche fan, who would you say are your biggest team's rivals that you don't particularly care for?
The Minnesota Wild are the number one.
Okay.
Detroit Red Wings are not so much a rival currently today, but there's leftover bad blood from when the Avalanche were making their Stanley Cup runs back in the very early 2000s.
Okay.
That was just so heated, and so that's kind of left over from that. And then I don't know if this is me personally or really for the team, but the Chicago Blackhawks, I don't like going to games when we play the Chicago Blackhawks, just because I found that I don't want to sound like I'm like being mean to all Chicago fans, because I'm sure they're not like this, but every time I've gone to a Chicago game, there are just people who get really drunk and get really belligerent and will just harass you. And that's kind of part of hockey sometimes, is you get really into it, and I don't know, that's just kind of part of it sometimes, but I haven't felt really uncomfortable at games like I have at Chicago games.
Gotcha.
But biggest rival right now is definitely the Minnesota Wild.
Okay. Is it just like what's the history with the Wild? Is there anything specific, or is it a division thing?
They're a newer rival. They're in our division now, and we have kind of been going back and forth with them over the past few years, like for wild card playoff spots. We're always pretty close in the standings. So just kind of that back and forth, playing them. We made a surprise playoff run a few years ago, and played them in the first round and got knocked out by them in game, I think it went to game 7. So
wow. Okay.
that was a heartbreaker and kind of sealed that deal. So.
All right. Okay, I guess last question per se. Well, no, we'll save that one. So you said you went to a lot of live hockey games. What would you say is your favorite aspect of going to a live hockey game?
I like how exciting it is. Like the atmosphere, the music's really loud. Everybody's really excited. When your team scores a goal, you go crazy a little bit, and it's just really exciting. And when you're sitting, especially when you're sitting closer, it's really interesting to see how it doesn't quite translate to TV, how fast and athletic they are and how hard they hit.
Yeah.
So it's really exciting to be able to see that perspective when you're sitting a little bit closer.
Yeah, I agree with the atmosphere thing. When we went, like you said, it's loud and the crowd's great. I mean, regardless of who they're cheering for. Like, honestly, I have no skin in the game. I mean, now I kind of do with Avalanche. They've grown.
So
I do have a t-shirt. I don't want to hear
it.
But
you're in it.
Anyway, I have no super skin in the game. I have slight interest in the game. But, like, it's good when everybody can just have fun with it. Like you mentioned the Chicago, like those, but like there was the Sharks game, like there was a definitely definitive, like there's a Sharks section and they were kind of scattered around. Like that's good when everybody's cool and you can playfully be like, no, your team sucks and this and that. That's fine. I'm cool with that and everybody's having a good time. But yeah, I think the presentation was what got me the most like into it and invested was the pregame footage, the in-between periods, like setups, the screen projection and the rink, and like just it hypes you up. Even if we're down by 3, I'm like, we're doing great, just because how it feels in there. So yeah, it's just it was a very interesting and fun experience to go. And I mean, these weren't my first hockey games by any stretch of the imagination. I think these were my first. No, because I saw the Hurricanes. These were my second and third maybe time seeing professional hockey. I saw the Hurricanes once. That was relatively close to the ice, and I saw some more minor league games here at home. But I think preference of seat, I actually think I like the nosebleed, the higher up section, just because you can see everything. And it was nice to be like, oh, move the thing over here, do this and and all that. I mean, both nights we had pretty good seats that were like that. I think I preferred the second night because we were like right smack dab in the middle, and we had nobody in front of us because it was that little tunnel that you enter, and it was just a fun time.
Those were great seats. I enjoyed that a lot.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's definitely, I can see what you mean by live versus TV because TV with any sport, it's just you sitting on your couch or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't have that energy perspective of
everybody the rest of the entertainment of it. And I think, well, I've never been to another team's game in another building. I feel like the Avalanche do a good job of that, and I think that the Pepsi Center is a good building. So I think they do a really good job of making it an entertaining experience. And have Pepsi Vision that's like 50 billion miles wide screen. So
all right, so my last question for you is, if you had to bring another player from a different team onto your team, who would it be and why?
Boy.
Like, who do you think would help out the Avalanche, if anybody in particular?
Well, I can't think of a person by name, but I think we need. So I think we've got pretty good offensive talent.
Okay.
I think they need to just shoot the puck a little bit more, but I think we have good talent. But I think we need a really top line leadership type defenseman to kind of get, I don't know. I feel like our defense falls apart kind of at any time, like a stiff breeze, and they just like all fall apart. So I feel like they need some sort of not only defensive talent, but kind of leadership talent to kind of get that, I don't know, get their chemistry right, or whatever it is that they need to change to keep that consistency throughout an entire game. Somebody to kind of lead that way. And I'm not sure exactly who that would be by name, but somebody. They need somebody.
All right. Cool. All right. Well, there's hockey.
There's hockey.
There's hockey.